Hello, everybody, and welcome back to episode 20 of CCA's Medical Minute podcast. I'm back to written notes, even though I kind of liked flying with that net a couple of times, but we got a lot to talk about today. I want to make sure we get through it on time.
I prefer the net.
All right. We've always got something to be excited about. So this week is two things. One, I have a new sport coat.
Nice.
Allows me to kind of bring this gold tie back out, which I'm excited about. And then we have new greenery. So Chris has got this place all bouged up at this point with, feels a little bit like Between Two Ferns. Did you ever see Zach Galifianakis, Between Two Ferns?
I really need to know. Like this is a point of contention here at CCA.
I like it, though. I like it.
We've got everybody who loves the greenery, and I feel a little encroached.
It is a little.
So, but Chris swears to me that it looks amazing on the screen. So I'm potentially being brought over to the green side, I guess.
It's so green it almost doesn't even look real.
Almost.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Okay, so another thing we're excited about. So we discovered recently in the last couple of days, none of us knows what it means, but we are now getting pop-up ads on our podcast episodes. So there was a Seinfeld episode, and it was the Spongeworthy episode. Did you ever see that? No. Where Elaine's contraceptive sponges were pulled off the market, and so she thought she had a limited supply that had to last for the rest of her life. Okay. So any guy that she was going to use one with had to be sponge-worthy. So we are now ad-worthy.
We are ad-worthy.
That's right. Again, we don't know what it means, but that's a good thing, I think. I don't know. We got 345 subscribers now.
Look at us go.
Yes, exactly. All right, so we can finally do these genetic testing results.
Yep.
And then so we're going to talk about that today. And I thought I would briefly walk people back through because there's been quite a lot of stuff going on.
Do a little rehash?
A little rehash, yep. Okay. So to recap what has happened starting in mid-September, we'll do this quickly. So my PSA was 3.5 in mid-September. It quadrupled to 13.7 in mid-December, and that was the point where we kind of knew something was going on. So as you'll recall, we did the Garden 360, which is the blood draw. Yep. Did that on December 23rd, and we found evidence of shed cancer cells, basically, in the bloodstream. Yep. And from that, we were able to identify a TP53V216L variant. So remind us again, what does that mean?
TP53 is just one of those mutations or alterations that can be found in multiple different types of cancer, prostate being one of them. The reason that was so relevant for you was because the previous gardens that we had looked at had no detected mutations. Right. Yep. And so this was correlating with the fact that we were seeing a progression of the PSA, and now we're seeing a measurable tumor mutation on the Garden 360.
Got it. Okay. So at that point, we had a high PSA. We had a positive finding in the Garden results.
Yep.
And then so we immediately scheduled a PSMA PET scan. And
road trip to Michigan.
Ann Arbor, once again.
Go Bucks.
Which I had that on January 27th, and that found that identified cancer in two new spots, left lung and left supraclavicular node.
Strong work.
All right. So on January 26th, had a biopsy done.
Yes. And
so that biopsy found in those two. Well, it was done in the neck area, but that was the
supraclavicular.
Yeah. But it found that was the same cancer, the existing prostate cancer, not a new cancer. So that was good.
Correct.
February 9th, I get another PSA result. 13.7 jumps to 19.3. February 11th, I started on a new drug called oxybutynin, which is helping with my hot flashes.
Good. Yeah. We have made it through a couple episodes without the beads of sweat popping up on the forehead.
It's been nice. February 13th, started on another new drug called Casodex, which is probably one of the oldest, if not the oldest, hormone blockade drug.
Pretty sure.
Okay. All right. And so that's kind of a bridge drug until we figure out what we're doing.
Yes.
February 15th, first tissue sample comes back from Caris Life Sciences.
QNS.
Yeah, QNS, nothing of any value. So we redo that on February 22nd. I have an MRI of my brain. They did find one, and it looked okay.
It speaks to the structure, not to the function.
That's right. Well, okay, fair point. Okay, so then that brings us to February 28th, when the Caris results come back that do have something that we can talk about. So do you want to explain kind of what those things are?
Okay. So the Caris result came back, and it showed an AR-V7 variant. Why this is important is that it's a result that does indicate hormone resistance, which, again, it matches. It matches the picture that we're seeing. You've been on hormone therapy, and now your PSA is increasing. We're starting to see disease pop up in the soft tissue outside of the pelvis. This all matches what we are finding in all of the tests that are being run.
Okay.
The other thing that we found was we were looking for that BRCA1 and BRCA2 mutation because obviously there is a treatment related or a treatment option related to that mutation. However, you were not positive for BRCA1 or BRCA2. And beyond those 2 points, there really wasn't anything else that was found, but it definitely pointed us in a direction that we needed to go in regards to deciding what treatment options are going to be best.
And the BRCA1 and BRCA2 negative results, so what that took off the table was the use of a PARP inhibitor. So that would have been olaparib and rucaparib.
Easy for you to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but basically Lynparza.
Correct.
So that would have been a possibility, but that's no longer a possibility. So on March 2nd, I met with my medical oncologist.
Quarterback.
Yep. PSA up once again, 19.3 to 21.9. So obviously we ruled out any further use of hormone therapy. And we discussed 3 potential treatment options that I'm looking at right now.
Yes.
So there's a possibility of a clinical trial at the National Institutes of Health in Bethesda, Maryland. One in Ann Arbor, of course. And then we can follow what would be the basic standard of care that would involve chemo.
Correct.
Okay, so that's where we are at the moment. So tomorrow I have a video meeting with the principal investigator at the National Institutes of Health.
Yep.
And so what should I expect from that phone call?
So when you are being evaluated for a potential clinical trial, all of your initial paperwork and previous test results, all of your pathologies, all of your records have already been sent up there.
Okay.
And they've done kind of a brief once over on, do they think that you're going to be eligible for their trial? Now, tomorrow what will happen is they're going to go into a lot more detail. They're going to discuss the ins and outs of the trials that they have available.
Okay.
They also are going to make sure that all of the nitty-gritty of the exclusion criteria is all met to make sure that you qualify for their specific trial.
Okay.
And that there aren't any red flags or anything that would exclude you from being a candidate.
Okay.
So that will be the gist of that call.
Okay. And so this particular trial at the NIH it's a combo, I guess. It's a phase 1 and phase 2 trial. So there's
Correct.
4 drugs.
Yes.
And all of which are investigational in nature. So can you explain what an investigational drug is?
So an investigational drug is a drug that has not been FDA approved, and they are looking to see if it's going to be effective in specific disease types.
Okay.
So it's something that hasn't. There will be some clinical trials that will look at a already known approved drug plus or minus an investigational drug. So you've got one that has already gone through all of the rigorous FDA regulations to be approved, and then the investigational that's starting that process.
Okay.
So in this case, you have 4 investigational drugs.
But other than that? Okay, so the phase 1, so 2 of these drugs would be phase 1, and we talked about that with Tim Schroeder, but so correct me if I'm wrong, but so this is a first-in-man kind of a situation. So
Correct.
it's been tested on animals, and then so it goes into man for the first time. And the idea here is to kind of increase the dose to find out what the maximum tolerable dose is.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So that sounds like a lot of fun. But, it is what it is, I guess. So the other option for me is this trial in Ann Arbor, which has a different approach, I guess you'd say, in that it relies on 2 already previously approved FDA drugs.
Correct.
So what's different about this one of them is enzalutamide, which is a drug called Xtandi, which I've already been on and kind of failed, if you want to call it failing, I guess.
Right.
The other, I'm going to try to pronounce this one too. Pembrolizumab.
Very good.
All right, thank you.
We call it Pembro for short to keep it simple.
Okay, that's a good call. So that's Keytruda, and so everybody's seeing lots and lots of commercials about Keytruda this day, but that's an FDA-approved immunotherapy drug.
Correct.
The
PD-1
first
inhibitor.
Okay. The first drug that I mentioned, Xtandi, is an FDA-approved hormone blockade drug.
Correct.
Okay. Which is second-line hormone therapy?
Yes.
Okay. And then there is one investigational drug called Zen 3694. I feel
Zen.
more relaxed already. Which blocks the
You
expression.
have to do this when you're getting it.
Who knows what I may end up doing with that one, but that one blocks the expression of the MYC gene, which is believed to spur the growth of tumor cells. So the idea here is, and I think I'd like you to explain that we're still on the kind of bleeding edge of getting immunotherapy to work with prostate cancer, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So in this case, the trial would be to take something that maybe in the past hasn't been that effective against prostate cancer, but they're hopeful about it, but combine it with another drug that is effective against prostate cancer.
Yes. And then an investigational drug, and hoping that the right recipe will make the perfect pie.
Okay. And that leaves us with the other possibility, and that's one last thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I've got a lot of stuff to think through in the next week.
Yes.
And then there's the potential for just chemotherapy, which is current standard of care,
Right.
which seems to kind of come later in the prostate cancer journey, but I think that's a past paradigm. Sometimes it does come earlier.
Well, and the thing of it is that with chemotherapy, we know it's going to work. We know that it will shrink the tumors back. We know that it will offer a response. But it has a pretty significant physical impact.
Yeah.
And the durability is unclear.
Yeah.
And so it definitely, you want to hold that card for when you need it the most.
Okay.
We tend to pull that trigger when the patient's in trouble. If there are any other treatment options, especially with someone like you that's healthy and isn't symptomatic of what we're seeing on paper, then if there are other clinical trial options, that's the time to use that, because once you get to the point where you're showing symptoms of the cancer, you may or may not be eligible for those clinical trials.
Okay.
And
that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. The thing that's crazy about clinical trials is that they want healthy people with cancer.
Okay.
So it's like...
And this goes to what we did talk to Tim about, is that there is a little bit of a misconception that that's like, oh, I'm at the end of my rope because I have to go and do a clinical trial. Okay.
Nope.
All right, good. Okay. So we'll have a future episode where we'll talk about whatever it was I ended up choosing and how that's going. In the meantime,
it's kind of like The Bachelor,
but worse.
I know, right? The rose ceremony is not nearly as much fun.
Okay, so anyway, we'll do that, and then everyone, if you can, we're super excited about the growth in subscribership for our podcast series. If you wouldn't mind keeping that going for us. I'm writing a blog now to talk about some of this stuff, because a lot of it's what we've talked about on these podcasts. So I think it's important to give kind of a real life account of that. So that would be cool. And then March is Colorectal Awareness Month.
Okay.
And we're going to have an upcoming episode on that.
Yep.
So we'll do that next week, right, Chris? Yeah, next week. So that should be good. And everybody, if you can join us back here again next Wednesday at noon, that would be great. And maybe we'll have some more news on whatever it was that I'm going to do next. So anyway, thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next week.